Fortress of Comic News, episode 168. I am one of your hosts, Kris, alongside the king of the BDE movement. It's Mike.
Yes, you've heard it here first. Kris and I are big proponents here of the BDE, and as all of you hip and with it youngsters out there know, what that stands for is Big Dork Energy. I've been told by a friend this week that that's what that stands for. So I would like to think that Kris and I have achieved a level of Big Dork Energy by the amount of shows we've done talking about comics, but who knows?
I think I'm at a total of 230 episodes of a comic book related podcast, 170 of this, and then 62 of my other one. So
wow,
I think we fit into that, right?
Way to flex your BDE muscle, Jesus. Before we get into any more of that, we have an awesome guest on the show today. As you can see, my backdrop is a little cut off here, but we have Will Dickstein on the show, and we're going to talk about Chosen. So stick around for that. Really cool. He's built this whole universe between novellas and comics, and we deep dive into all that and his writing process. And really cool guy. So yeah, check him out. We'll put links at the bottom of the show. But with that, I think we'll just jump right into the show, huh?
Let's do it.
All right. TV news. I was actually very upset with this news. Hartley Sawyer, the elongated man on the beloved Flash TV series, he's fired from the Flash. So one of the new and bright characters that I did start to enjoy, they found some tweets from 5 to 10 years ago deemed racist, misogynist, and he's gone just like that. Cut ties.
Yeah,
sucks.
So my first instinct whenever a story like this pops up is, okay, it's probably not a big deal and it's being over exaggerated, i.e. James Gunn.
Yeah, we always go back to the James Gunn thing, right?
Yeah, then that's kind of the one. I mean, a lot of them have really gone over the top for me, but that's the one that sticks in the nerd culture that was really like he apologized. I mean,
yeah.
Go back fucking 20 episodes, you'll find my description of that. But
right.
So I immediately was like, okay, what do you do? And I went back and I researched and I saw what he posted, and it's not James Gunn level. It's not like, oh, he tried to make a joke and just didn't work or something.
He was just being a piece of shit.
Yeah.
There's no way. Like, you go back, you look at him like, I want to like believe that he's just a bad person.
So I still stand by like my kind of feeling of this all around, that like, he apologized, he shows remorse, and everybody deserves a second chance, except for Hitler. And
I love how you just had that on, like, you had that locked and loaded, ready to go. Like, except for Hitler. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, so I'm down for giving him a second chance if it doesn't pop up again, but I understand people are freaking out about it. Some of them were pretty bad.
Yeah, we're not even going to get into it, but like, just don't. I mean, if there's one thing to live by, just don't be a dick. Just don't be like that.
So don't be a dick. And two, word of advice for younger people out there, because they're growing up with social media, where we were lucky enough to not really grow up as much with it.
Right.
Yeah, people can go back and find this stuff. You're seeing stories of it all the time, even people going into college that are being kicked out of college for things said. So,
even job interviews. Anybody looking for a job, I've heard of situations where they'll pull your Facebook posts and bring them into your into your interview. And if you're embarrassed by it, then you probably shouldn't be posting it.
So basically, think before you tweet.
Yeah.
But two, for people our age and older, let's also remember, like, we all evolve and change over time, and we grow to be different and better, hopefully better people. So let's not always go about what somebody said 5-10 years ago and see what the person is today. That'd be that's my moral of today.
But did he apologize?
So that is the one thing. He apologized after getting caught, so it's I agree with him I kind of agree with him being fired, because these were kind of deleted and like shunned to the side.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, like anything else on the internet, it's there forever. It doesn't matter if you delete it.
Yeah.
Somebody found it, somebody pulled it up, somebody brought it to people's attention, and he had never really publicly apologized in the past. Mm-hmm. Where we go back to the James Gunn situation, he apologized years before, saying that these were inappropriate, and then somebody's trying to bring it back. But all I'm saying is maybe his firing today is fine, but I don't think he should never be able to have a job again based on this, unless he does it again.
Yeah, right. Unless you're Amber Heard, you never get a job ever again.
You know who I really feel sorry for, though?
Who?
There was a woman, obviously I'm not watching the show, so excuse me if I don't know names, but there was a woman that was hired to be his wife or ex-wife in the show.
Oh.
Now she doesn't have a part.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think... Yeah, because, yep, you're right. Mm. And the whole point, like, Ralph Dibny is such a wholesome character in the DC universe, and the whole, the relationship that he has, I don't know, it's like, it sucks. I thought he was a good part, too, but...
Yeah, the irony here is that Ralph Dibny, the elongated man in this show, is exactly what I'm talking about. He was a piece of shit who became better over time.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Interesting how that works, huh? So what are we watching right now? So I started Narcos last week. Speaking of people never allowed to have a second chance, I had no idea how bad Pablo Escobar was. If you watch Entourage, all I knew about that was Medellin. But that's clearly, they didn't explain anything to me because holy crap, that guy was evil. Really good 3 seasons of it. Pedro Pascal's in it. The Mandalorian himself. The guy from the Logan movie, that the character that hunts down Logan is in it. He's the main actor. They're like partners. There's some really famous actors, actresses, and the story's good and it's true. Like, you can't believe how ridiculous, like how much money this guy had, how much power, and how he was sick of the government, so he just bought an army and just ran him out of. He just ran over the government and like took the country over. It's crazy. It's it's not really comics related, but it's really good. Yeah. So what are you up to? What are you reading or watching?
I didn't really watch anything new this week. I've been watching just like fluff stuff.
Yeah.
It got HBO Max. It's got Impractical Jokers on it. I like that show. Cool. It's dumb, but it's fun.
Yeah.
And then Big Bang Theory's on there too. So I've been watching that with the missus.
Oh, that's always great.
Yeah. So I haven't been watching anything like spectacular. I'm still. I'm gonna have some days off here this week. I think I'm gonna check out that Stargirl now that I have free time and see if it's anything I'm gonna
see what you say about it before I give it a shot.
Okay.
If you like it, then I have to watch it. But if you don't like it, I want to see what you don't like, what reasons you don't like it for, and then I'll make my assessment from that. If it's like a character thing and like the actors are awful, then I probably won't watch it. But if it's, I don't know, we'll see. If those characters don't resonate with you or something. But anyways, we'll jump into the movie news, huh? Many studios are discussing the lack thereof movie news, but a lot of studios are discussing the return of films across the U.S. The Batman staff believe they could be back up and running before July. I hope so, because I really want a Batman trailer this year. Like, what could save us right now? A Batman trailer. Like, that could unite the people. Like, that everybody gets behind and says, this is going to be a good Batman movie. Please. Please.
And then we'll all be sorely disappointed when we hit the movie theaters.
Yeah, but I'm a little upset. You left out a trailer in the notes that I watched this week, I believe. The Bill and Ted Face the Music. Did you watch that trailer?
No.
It looks good. I mean, as far as a Bill and Ted movie coming out, it's kind of jarring to see Keanu without the facial hair, and It's almost like Keanu's doing an impersonation of surfer dude Keanu is how I would describe it, because he hasn't acted like that in so many years that he's like, oh man, wow, dude, you know what I mean? Like it's almost like he's doing an impersonation of himself from like the 80s. So I'm gonna check it out.
I like Bill and Ted. They're fun movies. They're they're stupid fun movies.
Yeah.
I'm worried about Keanu the actor, because it seems like this John Wick thing happened.
Yep.
Movies I still haven't seen.
Wait, did we try to watch it once and fall asleep, right? I think.
Yeah, I fell asleep because I drank too much.
Yeah, that happens.
And by too much, I mean like, what, 3 beers?
Yep.
But yeah, this John Wick thing happened is really big. It brings him back in the spotlight. And now it seems like all we're doing is going back to old Keanu movies and be like, let's make another one.
Yeah, right.
Like, so I'll bring it up. What are we watching? I rewatched Matrix this week.
Yeah.
Just in the background, kind of watch. It's a great movie. It still is. If it holds up. But then I tried to watch 2, and I'm just like, oh yeah, this should have ended with 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my main issue there. And then the other issue being like Matrix, that could probably come back because all Matrix is fucking John Wick on heroin.
Yeah.
Bill and Ted I'm worried about because of what you said. Like that old surfer stoner dude, like whoa man.
Yeah.
He's a little old for that shit.
Yeah. I mean, I like the premise
I'll give
of
it a
like
shot.
They're washed up like playing open mic nights at like bars, which is kind of funny. But it's just like, I mean, it's going to take a while to settle in with the Keanu of like, dude, this guy was like killing people with pencils and now he's just like, whoa, man. It's interesting. I mean, I'm going to check it out. I'm going in with low expectations. That's what you got to do with this stuff.
Yeah,
you know?
have to. Yeah. But I also, after watching Matrix and part of Matrix 2, I realized that I'm on the side of the robots.
Oh.
We destroyed the planet.
Yep.
They saved it. And not only that, they saved the human race by putting us in those pods and giving us a fantasy world that's much better than the real world that we destroyed. They don't kill us. They let us live out our lives and then harvest our energy.
Yeah, I mean...
I think they did the right thing.
Again, kind of existential. But, yeah, I mean, I'll have to watch them again, but I think the robots are the bad guys. I'm not sure.
I'm on the side of the robots. I don't care.
I think I need to call someone after this episode of the podcast.
Listen, if Greta, whatever her name is right, and we destroy the world and robots rise and put me into the Matrix, give me a pretty good life, and I don't have to live in the wasteland that we created, I'm fine with that.
I see. There's that whole it goes back to the whole conversation of like the guy eating the steak. He's like, I know this isn't real, but I'm enjoying it and it tastes good, but that's a little too big brain thinking for this level of the podcast. I think, I don't know, we might have to deep dive into that.
Unless we really want to get into the conversation of freedoms.
Oh, nope. With that, we're going to jump to this awesome interview we have with Will Dickstein, and we shall see everybody on the other side.
And welcome back, everybody. Today we have another very special guest. Welcome to the show, Will Dickstein. Will, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for being here, man. So like we do with all our first-time guests, we want to get to the origin story of what made you want to write this comic, Chosen, and we'll talk about that in a second. But yes, if you could give us your origin of if you've always loved comics, growing up, or where did it all start for you?
Sure. So started writing pretty young, probably like everybody does, and really got serious about first technical writing, honestly. I have a degree in English and journalism, and so spent a lot more time just kind of writing in general. Got real serious about fiction when I was kind of like 19, 20. And right around then as well is when I started reading comics. I started reading comics arguably late in life. And it was honestly running into like a random screen caption from the Civil War arc in Marvel Comics. Mm-hmm. And it's that one of Captain America, right? Where it doesn't matter what the press says and stuff like that. Right. You stand like a tree beside the river of truth. And, I saw that panel.
Yeah.
he's talking to Spider-Man, and that was it. I was like, is this what I'm missing? Like, literally, that's what I thought. I'm like, is this what I'm missing? And it turned out, it was. Yeah. And so I spent a lot of time in the early years of reading comics just catching up on back issues. And then after that, it kind of evolved into a pretty hefty pull list. I trend a lot more towards DC. Early Marvel is good, and I think we can all understand how you fall off of either one.
Yep.
But just in general, I kind of prefer fantasy over sci-fi, and I kind of like the themes a little bit better in a lot of the DC comics. I'll pick up a Marvel title here and there, and I read a lot of Image and a fair amount of Dark Horse too.
Mm-hmm.
But primarily read DC Comics. So my pull list got really extensive at one point, and then now I'm in a mode where I spend so much time on author stuff that I am back to just back issues, where I will, I'll let 4 or 5 months go by, and then I'll catch up on everything that I missed. So I stopped reading comics last year in like June, and as of like last month, caught up on everything from like June to December. So I haven't read any of the comics for this year now, right? Yeah, I just got through like all of the dark metal stuff and
nice.
Batman Joker stuff, and that was all really cool. And now I'm, I stay kind of outside of the comic news bubble, minus like big shifts in the industry, like DC doing all the publishing stuff and that.
We talk about that every week, but it's like,
yeah. So anyway,
let's talk real quick about how different comics are now. There's going to be a Joker Batman war coming up, and DC's Knight's Death Metal is coming out. So things have changed a lot since you last read.
Yeah. now you get the sequels coming out of what you just read, right? So there you go.
Yeah. And so, but I kind of prefer it that way at this point, where I'm catching up on a couple months of comics at a time, just because I get pretty frustrated, when you get left off on like a number 3 of a 5 comic story arc. And so I don't know. We all kind of like binging, I think.
You also, I mean, it's good because you probably miss out on the things like waiting for the last issue of, Jeff Johns to write something, or like Mark Miller, where it's like, okay, you got 7 issues in. It's like, where's my last issue of Doomsday Clock?
Right. Exactly. And so when I was originally catching up on back issues, then I got to just go read the entire like Lantern War thing. Speaking of Jeff Johns, right? When I got to just go back and just read Blackest Night all at once, like that was the best. Like that was so great for me. So, I think I cut it away.
Let's rewind a little bit there. When you said you started off with technical writing. How was that transition in the mindset of, okay, I'm writing something to inform people, and there's a whole process there, but it's not so much creative, I guess. I don't know if it's as creative, but now you're telling a story. So how did you make that transition? Was it difficult? Was it easy for you? Or?
Yeah, I think you're always telling a story, and I mean, outside of like writing a manual for something, although I guess even, I don't know, IKEA, right? So, okay, to answer your question as accurately and concisely as possible, I would say this is, at the end of the day, I think writing is a muscle as much as it's an art and stuff. I think you need to train it. And I think that anything you're doing that builds up your ability to just sit down and get words on the page is beneficial. And so for me, when I sat down and there's this really great quote, I think it's by like Ira Glass, and the guy from Zen Pencils, I think, drew a comic about it. And it's about how in the beginning, when you're making stuff, that it's not good because you have good taste. So you make something and you sit down and you're like, man, this is not even close to the stuff that I like to read. The quality is terrible and stuff like that. And so I think it just comes down to building the muscle, being honest with yourself, and then deciding that you're going to do what you have to do to get better. And so it takes words on the page, it takes feedback, it takes doing what you can to get read. And I mean, like, even when I was mainly just doing technical writing and working on, journalistic stuff, I was still reading. And so I think I still was building that taste. And so once I really wanted to get serious about fiction, I just kind of came up with a plan of, I'm going to start with short form, right? So Chosen kicked off with novellas.
Yep.
At a time also, I would like to mention, when Amazon in particular didn't have a superhero category, and also had only just released like Kindle singles as being a thing. So I was like ground floor in that respect, which is cool. And, I just wanted to get read, I wanted to get feedback, and I wanted to be able to finish things quickly so I could get better faster. I didn't want to sit there and toil away, as a lot of people end up doing on a single piece, without being able to actively improve. And so that was kind of the way that I approached fiction. And I had always written, stuff here and there, but once I really, really buckled down, I just did my best to like follow advice and then follow feedback, and then just like really just keep going, just getting words on the page all the time.
That's interesting. And the novella approach, was that just like you said, just so you can, get stories out fairly quickly, or?
Mostly, yes. I also just had a lot of stuff that I wanted to do. I mean, some people who build up, or who create settings and stuff, story building, right? So, or world building. Some people sit down and they take the world building process and they say, I'm going to outline everything. I'm going to create a whole history. I'm going to do all this stuff. And the really kind of funny thing is, when I started writing that first chosen novella, I didn't know that I was making a dystopian superhero universe. I was world building as I was writing these stories, instead of sitting down and making backstories and, designing the factions and stuff like that. Like, I did literally everything piece by piece as I was putting stories out. And so part of the approach was also just that it was kind of fun to, like, one, tell a lot of different stories, because every chosen work is told in the first person perspective of the character telling the story. So I've got 12 novellas, I've got 12 different characters telling you 12 different stories, right? The stories play into each other, they share scenes and settings and stuff like that. One of the collections is actually the same 3 days told from 3 different perspectives, that kind of thing. And so yeah, the approach was just so that I could feel good about finishing stuff quickly, so that I could provide a variety. And also, I just felt like I wanted to write with a lot of different voices all at once, kind of. And so, the first 5 of them, they were like 9 weeks apart. And then at that point, I had started kind of branching out, and I wrote the first comic, and I did some live action stuff that never went anywhere. And so the plan also was kind of always to make it an expanded universe,
Cool. That's really cool. So where did this chosen idea come from? I mean, we can give everybody the plot synopsis of what your idea was at the start for it.
Okay, yeah. The origin, or like the idea, was, and it kind of goes back to, originally I kind of dipped my toes into comics and stuff like that with Marvel. And so the idea just kind of hit me of, like, with the Civil War specifically, I just kind of like the idea of it going in the opposite direction. Like, what if the Superhero Registration Act had gone through? Like what kind of world would we end up living in if you never got to have a secret identity? Right? And so really at its core and the roots of Chosen, I kind of ran with that. And then, it's not an X gene, because we would never label a gene with a single letter. We would give it a standard gene nomenclature, which is 2 letters, 2 numbers, 2 letters. And so in the Chosen universe, we're examining the CH05EN gene, which doesn't exist, obviously, but their universe is the universe that destines you for greatness. And I went broad with it for 3 reasons. And the first main one is that I don't want it to just be superpowers, right? I want it to be, people with a latent Chosen gene. It might activate, and you save somebody's life. You become CEO of a Fortune 500 company, right? That's in the opening of every one of the Chosen works. And the other 2 reasons kind of go back to, I like to tell meta stories. I think your last guest kind of touched on this too, where he said he puts Easter eggs between all of his comics and stuff, right? So I do the same thing, but what I'm actually actively always doing is telling meta stories. So there's the story that you're reading, and then there's bits from that story that go into a larger story that I'm telling. And I like it because all of my narrators, to a certain degree, are unreliable, right? So it's also up to you to read everything and to say to yourself, oh, he told it this way and she told it this way. So the objective truth is probably somewhere in between. And even more than that, I'm also creating an unreliable premise in the fact that you want to believe the objective truth about the Chosen gene is it destines you for greatness. But at the end of the day, is that even true? Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that was 3 reasons. Might have been 2.5. I don't know. But
no, for sure. I mean, you see that too with the issue that Kris that we read too. it's not. I mean, having that gene isn't always the best thing, right? Especially in a dystopian future, it's like you can get in a lot of trouble being gifted, almost, right?
Yeah, and so that segues really well into the way that I like to treat it in terms of it is dystopian artwork, and so I am saying stuff about society with it. It's a way for me personally to give you my opinion on the state of the world and where I think we're going, right? Mm-hmm. And so you bring up that a lot of characters are motivated by, which is a lot of the time a stronger chosen gene is a bad thing, because some people and classifications for your chosen gene really only matter at the level of like the Global Hero Society, and so the average person, wouldn't know about them really outside of what they see in the media. But so some people become specians, right? You can think like Wolverine or Sabretooth. Wolverine looks more like a dude and Sabretooth looks less like a dude. Right. And so a stronger chosen gene, you would look less human and more animalistic. And you can imagine, like, if you have a chosen gene and it gives you the characteristics of like a crab, and you're mostly a crab person, you're probably living a really terrible life. And so and so there are
No, I'm thinking about like trying to tie my shoes as a crab person. Like I would, it would.
I'm sorry, my brain went to South Park with crab people.
That too.
Yeah, but even in South Park, those crab people were like, they had a lot of stigma surrounding them, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I think you're exactly right. There are support groups for people whose genes have given them a life that really sucks. And what you see is that a lot of those people fall into not just the dredges of society, but actually literally what is my equivalency of kind of the brotherhood, which is the genetic extremists. And that's the genetic extremists are touched on really lightly in the Kris comic, but touched on very heavily in a lot of the other stories. The leader of the genetic extremists is actually kind of just a combination between Magneto and Professor X, where he has Magneto's ideals and they're turned up to 11, but his power is to kind of inception people. And so he's this villain who behind the scenes is running a lot of things kind of that people don't really realize. And you see him a lot in the first 2 volumes of the comics that I have, which are the Grizz comics.
So do you see with you said there's 12 novellas that you've done? I think I have 13. Sometimes 13? I have to go back and like count. So there's 5. Okay, so there's 5 in the first collection. That is the Tale of Gems. Then there's origin stories that I did for characters who appeared in the Tale of Gems, and there's 3 in the Origins anthology. Then I highlighted some of the factions that exist, and there's 3 in that anthology. So that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Then I did a chapter book for kids called Chosen No-Nos, about a little boy who wakes up. He's born with an elephant tusk, and he loves his elephant tusk, and he moves to a new school, and they don't like his elephant tusk, right? And then he wakes up one day as he's finally being accepted at this new school to realize that he's growing tusks. And so now his problem is that all over again he's worried about getting made fun of. And it's actually a really fun chapter book where he fights robots.
I'm interested in that now. That's the story I want to read. Holy
driving idea in there is that your body changes and it's okay, right?
Yeah.
And then I have another one that is in the can and done that I'm going to release after we finish this release for this new comic. That's also a chapter book for kids, and it's the perspective of his bully, which is a little rhino boy. And this is another one where I do the same kind of 3 days from a different perspective. And the themes in that one are it's okay to be like, I'm examining kind of gender in little kids in that one. So the rhino boy's parents are really bad at communicating with him, and he kind of keeps getting these ideas that convince him to be a bully, when really at the end of the day his dad was just kind of embarrassed that his little kid liked to put on a dress, right?
Interesting.
So so the third one is a little zombie girl, and hers isn't written yet. So anyway, so that was 8, 9, 10, 11. Wait. 8, 9, 10, 11, right? We have 12 with the kids. I have a novel, an actual full-length novel, the first one, which is the background that you have right now, which is Chosen Ivy.
Yep.
And that came out last October. So that's 12. One in the can is 13. And then I have 8 comics in the first 2 volumes, and this one shot is the 9th comic. Okay. But everything outside of the first 2 volumes of comics and the actual standalone novel right now are non-sequential. So you can read everything in literally any order, never be lost, right? I wrote these in such a way that you can read episode 1 and then jump to Megatech, because that's his mom's origin story. And then you can go from Megatech if you want and hop over to like Aggregate to get like the other side. I don't know. Like you can read these in any order, bro. Like
That's good.
Yeah. So my two questions there were, one, are these all available in print, or do you just have them available digitally to download? And then two, the novellas and other stuff, do you have any plan to make them into comic series? Are they a part of those 8 issues that we didn't read? Stuff like that.
Okay, good questions. So to answer your first question, everything is available Kindle format. The majority of them are also available on Amazon via print because Amazon prints on demand. The comics right now are not available via print on Amazon. And the reason is because I went with like a small printer and was really only selling the physical copies of the comics at like shows and stuff. But now with Kris, and especially because all the shows this year got canceled, I finally decided to get a little smart and figure out how to have Amazon print them, because like before they were using CreateSpace, then they bought CreateSpace, right? And so it was like actually really hard to kind of get like good quality, I thought, just from what I'd seen from the way that Amazon printed stuff. Like for little comic books, it was okay, but I have like 90-page volumes. And so the quality that I was getting for the price I was paying through this like small printer in Portland that I was using, #Greco, was really nice in comparison to what I had seen from other people who were printing off CreateSpace. But now, recently, after getting like a test copy printed of the new 50-page one-shot, I think Amazon's really stepped it up. And so now here I'm kind of going back, and everything is going to be available in all formats on Amazon here pretty soon. It just comes down to like clicking stuff and, reformatting a little bit so print's okay and whatever. So, yeah. And then your other question was, are they related? Yes. So the Grizz comics, Grizz is a character who appears in Chosen Episode 2, which was the second novella that I ever released. And what it does is it kind of immediately picks up after the events of Episode 2. So it is a little sequential in that way, but there's no spoilers across either of them, really. So you can still read them in any order. But yeah, Grizz is a character who's in Episode 2. He's just like a side character who has a couple minutes of screen time, and then I took him and I put him in this comic and I gave him a whole thing, and he has a whole adventure across 8 issues. So,
my second question actually was the novellas. Did you plan on turning them into comics of some sort?
So the plan tentatively is kind of sort of to do maybe eventually what I did with Grizz, which is to give them a continuation via comic. What I can tell you, and I say we now because I'm also working with my wife a little bit, is what we're doing is we're going to go and keep looking to do one-shots like I started to do with Kris now, instead of, like volumes and stuff. I just kind of like the self-contained format a little better. And then also we're going to make the jump really, really soon here to Webtoon. And so with the Webtoon, what I'm going to be looking to do is still kind of like anthology format. It's going to be darker for sure, and we're going to go like sort of Tales from the Crypt style. Yeah, thank you.
So
but it's going to be Tales from the Midnight Circus, and so the Midnight Circus, it's something that I've examined here and there, and then gets really kind of dug into in the final in Act 4, basically, of Chosen Ivy. You see a lot of the Midnight Circus, and so we're taking. And I'm doing the same thing with the Webtoon, where I'm taking a character who you didn't even know was in the Midnight Circus in that book, giving him his own Webtoon kind of thing, and it's gonna take place kind of directly after like book 1 ends, and then I'm doing the same thing with the second novel too. So the Webtoon and the second novel are gonna really heavily tie into each other. But yeah, the second novel picks up literally a day later, and it's like with a guy who escapes from the circus kind of thing.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
With each of these installments, are you seeing like your fan base grow for this? Or is it like the novellas kind of like reach to one audience, the comics reach to another audience, or is it kind of? Do you think it's a mix?
Yeah, so that's a really I really appreciate that question, because I'd like to say yes in general, but the way like. There's it's like I'm probably not telling you anything new here, but when you write a story, you can write it to market or you can do your own thing. And so writing it to market is following that. And this is just for listeners who don't know, I guess. When you write to market, you follow that formula of, whatever you think is going to happen is probably what happens in the story. And so I don't really write to market ever. and it's I actually think really hard to when you're digging into dystopian literature of any kind. I think it's really hard to know what writing to market is. And so what I have always kind of found is, 10 people might read anything in the Chosen universe, and somewhere closer to like 2 or 3 of them are like, yo, let me read literally everything you have. Yep. And so in general, I find a lot of the time people have no problems being like, hey, this was written really well, but also it just definitely was not for me. And then, like 1 or 2 of their friends are like, literally, please tell me when the next thing is coming out. So the people who are actually fans, thankfully, are like really, really, really into it the majority of the time. So, but I miss a lot. I'm real good at not getting people super interested.
But I mean, I get that. I mean, after reading one issue, though, I am more. I'm definitely geared more towards the novellas, like to see the expanded universe and see what's going on. Obviously, I like pictures too. I'm a comic book reader first, but I don't think it's that. I don't know. It's that different for me to switch to a novella, especially because it's shorter too. But it's interesting to see that, like, as long as you write it well and not to market, like because I don't think Kris and I have ever discussed that, like writing to market. But that's an interesting thought process. Is like, well, if I just write it the way I want, then people see the way I'm writing and they'll just want it in any format. They just want more stories, I guess, right? That's cool.
Yeah, those are the people I'd rather have read my stuff, and I have a really healthy, very tiny platform. I do have people wait for the next one, and that's kind of all you can really ask for, I think. I was never going to be trying to make a full-time living off of it. I still have a day job that I very much appreciate. And I probably don't do as much. I probably don't plug as much money into actually advertising as I could, even though I don't want to have it be a full-time thing. But also, I don't know. It comes and goes. It comes and goes. So anyway,
that's
so. Do you find it tough with all you said? Most of the novellas and comics, you're not really focusing on one character for an extended period of time. Do you find it tough as far as the trying to hook someone into the fan base to not have that centralized character that everybody can go with? Because I fell in love with Marvel, but I fell in love with Marvel through Captain America and through the Avengers. And then kind of expanded from there. But that was also after reading volumes and volumes and volumes of Captain America. Do you find that that's kind of tough for some of the people you bring in, that like, okay, we got this one-shot Kris, and then not to say we'll never see her again, but it's not like it's Kris number 1, then Kris number 2, and so on and so forth. It's now we're going to do this character.
Right. Yeah. There probably is a degree of that. I haven't run into it very much, but I probably don't run into it as much as I would normally, in another situation, just because characters that get their own book, majority of the time, are still in other stuff. So Kris herself is in episode 3. She's in Jane. She's in Aggregate. Like Kris is Kris is a 100% reoccurring character. She had her actual origin story was in an older version of a newsletter that I used to run in the very beginning, which is that story that's in the back of the comic, right? So I just threw it in there because you're never going to find it now. So there probably would be more of it if I didn't have all of these people kind of show up all the time. And the way that I've tried to approach it, I don't know, if you read them or are familiar, but Anne Rice had a series of vampire books way back in the day when we were kids, right? And so, the narrators in those books changed, but the characters really didn't, right? So Interview with the Vampire is like one of the worst books on the planet. But after that, when you get to the Vampire Lestat and all the other ones, they're really good. And the narrators in those change, book to book, but you get to see Lestat over and over and over, right? So I kind of do the same thing a lot of the time, at least or especially in the self-contained anthologies. Like all these characters in the first 5 are present in some way in at least more than one of them. It's the same thing with the Factions anthology. The Origin anthology is the only one where they don't really play with each other, but it's because they're origin stories. Okay. So, yeah.
So the latest installment coming out is Kris, right?
Yes, correct. Okay. That comes out in like 2 weeks, towards the end of June. I think I put 25th as the release date. The pre-order page is up. You can take a look at it anytime. And the story follows a late teen, early 20s vagabond. Mm-hmm. She has a voice or some kind of mystical thing in her head that calls to her, which may or may not be directly related to her chosen gene, which I'll touch on more in a second. And what it acts as is basically a homing beacon for the rapidly dwindling amount of magical ink that powers magical tattoos across the globe. And so she's constantly traveling from place to place to find any little bit extra of this magical ink, of which there are also dwindling numbers of knowledgeable, tattoo parlors who have the ability to even put the ink onto your skin. Mm-hmm. And so, so the fun thing about this one is there aren't a lot of people inside the universe, characters in the universe, who even know that magic actually exists.
Okay.
So what you'll see is that magic is a focal point of this story, but in the novellas and the other comics, people run into magical items and it either gets explained away as some kind of, chosen gene manipulation, whatever, telekinesis, I don't know. Or they just, never really think about it. It never gets talked about. It's not in the globally public consciousness at all. And so Kris herself is a part of this, really, really, really unknown portion of society where she's a seeker looking for this magical ink. And as you see in the comic, she runs into people who know about the ink but don't hear the call, right? Yeah. And so their boogeyman, as it were, are skinners, people who literally want to flay the skin off of you to melt the ink down and get their own tattoos, or just graft your skin onto their body, right?
That was pretty dark. I liked it.
Yeah. And so, that also goes back to, these guys also are genetic extremists. Mm-hmm. And so they're also, a part of this other really, really terrible portion of people who, are ready to just kind of totally eliminate people whose chosen genes are weak in the first place.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so they have their own personal motivations beyond just looking for this magical ink, right? That's what we were doing there. So that is mainly what the new comic is about. She's on her own. She's been on her own since she was a kid, and she meets some people who she thinks that she wants to kind of travel with full time, and they get into some trouble, and then we kind of go from there. And so a lot of the research that I did for the comic actually was looking for firsthand accounts from people who lived that kind of vagabond lifestyle, right? Who were homeless and always traveling, and every time I write something like this, I really want to make sure that if I'm going to speak to a portion of society that I don't live in, that I get as accurate as possible. And so if anyone who's listening to this ends up reading the comic and used to be homeless, hopefully I don't offend you. But, I tried to make it. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
That's definitely a good part to try to make it as accurate as possible. But yeah. I think that's interesting. We touched on the whole Easter egg thing before, but kind of dropping that line that there is magic in this universe, mm-hmm. and characters have experienced it. Now it's like, if I'm a fan, I would want to go back and be like, where else has this popped up in, and like how is it being interpreted and stuff like that.
Yeah, hopefully. So like I said, these characters that tell the stories, they don't have all the details. So they tell the story that they have the ability to tell, which is something that comes back to like when I used to play D&D and you're role playing and you're making decisions as your character. Mm-hmm. So episode 4, which episode 4, the magic is really in your face. Really, really in your face. And it's in your face in episode 5 too, until it isn't. It's in your face literally until it isn't, and it ends up being maybe something else. So that kicked off the way that I really wanted to treat magic in the universe at large. And then so in Ripsaw, which is my favorite novella that I've written so far, there's magic right in the beginning, but he doesn't know. Like, he has no idea. And so that magical artifact or item that he runs into in the beginning is the magical item/artifact that is at the heart of the second volume of the Grizz comics. And so I brought it back, and I brought it back as a little Easter egg there. So yeah, I mean, I just like when I did it that way on accident, kind of in the very beginning, and then I was like, you know what, that just makes a lot of sense to me, and so I'll throw the same. Yeah, I've been throwing the same item at these characters, different characters, for a while now, and they just have no idea. We'll get there eventually. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
So yeah, that's awesome, man. Where could we send people to follow you moving forward if they wanted to check everything out?
For sure. So the easiest place if you want to see my full catalog and my handsome face is just my Amazon page. So it's amazon.com/William-Dickstein. And that should just take you, I'm going to try it right now while we're on the call. That should just take you directly. Oh, it doesn't. No, there's like an extra part of the link. So there's a bunch of extra letters at the end of the link. You can just search me if you search my name on the search bar on Amazon, or you type in CH05EN, then that brings up all my stuff right there. And that's a really easy way to find me. Outside of that, on Instagram, I changed my handle a couple months ago, and it is chosen_will. Find me on Instagram. And so on Instagram, I don't just post about author stuff, but my wife and I also train MMA. And so you get to see videos of us doing that. And I try to be funny sometimes. Like the other day, I posted a picture of me almost dunking an Oreo into a glass of water, and I asked my followers what temperature they like their water for their Oreos to be, because I prefer room temp. I
cringed at that. That's that. Yeah. Oh God, Oreos and water. Oh my God, it makes me so uncomfortable just hearing.
Yeah. So it just felt like social media was getting really serious for like 3 weeks. And
we need more of that. We need more Oreos being dunked in water. Yeah.
And then the Chosen Universe has its own Facebook page as well. It's at Chosen CH05EN Books, one word, at Chosen Books. So lots of places. You plug in the word Chosen into Google, something about me is going to come up. I got the keyword on lockdown, which is good. So that's it.
Cool. Well,
and everyone out there will have that link to your Amazon page in the show notes down below as well, so you can just click there too.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show. And when you get this book out about Kris, we would love to have you back on and talk more about it. So
I'm in. Yeah, absolutely. Sounds great. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Will.
And we're back.
Awesome. Yeah, so please check his stuff out. More than likely going to have him back. And yeah, he's built this awesome universe. So check it out. Chosen. CH05EN. Check it out. With that, let's get to the comic news. Kris has got to give us an update here. So if you want to jump into that.
Yeah, so last week we talked about DC leaving Diamond and the effects that had. And from everything I had read, I believe that what I had said was 100% factual. And I at no point was meaning to mislead anybody, but I had a long conversation with my retailer, and there was the one thing I messed up on. Basically, when our retailers do orders, their discounts are not based overall on everything put together. They're based in categories. So there was a DC category, and however many DC you bought, you got a discount based on that. And then Marvel had its own category, and some of the smaller, like Image and Dark Horse, had their own category as well. And then there was an other category, and that was kind of everything in the back that was like super indie. So some of the criticisms I've heard about the DC leaving Diamond thing have kind of, my view has changed a little bit, because if it's not affecting the overall discounts for the retailers, then I don't really see the big deal here. And from what he's told me too, he said the ordering system so far is pretty good. It looks like everything's done really well. They communicate well, and the discounts are pretty much the same going from Diamond to this new system. So I guess what I'm saying is all of my critiques from last week are incorrect.
Yep. You're out the window. See you later.
Yeah. So I just didn't want people to think that we were standing by that, even though I got new information. So I just wanted to have a correction.
It's like I have a sign in one hand that says "Awesome DC," and I got my pitchfork in the other. So I'm just waiting to see like which one to raise this week.
Yeah. So I'm curious too, because he told me there's a longer story to be had about the whole Mile High comics using the DC Sucks promo code.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to dive deeper into that story because there's something there, and it's not like he's the only one that was complaining about it. There's a lot of people complaining about it. So
Right.
I do want to take a nuance to say that I'm not 100% for this happening, but it does seem like some of the critiques I had are invalid.
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of sorry, DC, but I think
I'll find something to bitch you about next week.
yeah,
DC.
we'll yeah, we need something to complain about, damn it. What I won't ever complain about is free comics, and that's what we're getting hopefully in July. Marvel's announced that they're going to release their free comic book day issues that we all sorely missed in May. On July 15th, you'll be able to grab the free comic book day 2020 X-Men with stories by Hickman, Tom Taylor, and it's going to set up the summer's Sword of X event and Tom Taylor's new upcoming X-Men series. July 22nd, you can grab the free comic book day 2020 Spider-Man / Venom with story from the Spider-Man Venom crossover by Donny Cates, Jed McKay, Patrick Gleason, Ryan Stegman, and more. And yeah, I think that's really awesome that they're going to do that.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I mean, what a great way to, get these stories out there. And I mean, it sucks that we couldn't have free comic book day this year, but
yeah. I still don't know what they're doing with free comic book day this year because they've talked about doing one later in the year. But obviously, as we've talked off air, every week it seems like no one knows what the fuck's going on out there.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
But these two stories in particular, Marvel's always used free comic book day as kind of a setup for their big summer events. So these had to come out sooner or later. I would like to see. I kind of hope that Marvel flips the bill for them and just sends them to retailers, saying how many X-Men people do you have, how many Spider-Man Venom people do you have, and just sends it to them to put in their pull boxes.
Yeah,
I think that'd be nice. But either way, I'm excited to get these books because these are two. I'm reading both of these titles, and I'm excited for both these crossovers. Yep.
Iron Man's getting a relaunch this September following Dan Slott's recent run ending with Iron Man 2020. It's going to be taken over by the Halt and Catchfire co-creator writer Christopher Cantwell with art by Cafu and the new Iron Man armor designs by Alex Ross. That seems pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think he's due for a new redesign. I don't know. Maybe I don't know what Iron Man fans think about this, but I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, it's always been like subtle redesigns over the years. Like I think if you put the original armor next to today's armor, there's a huge difference.
Oh,
but
yeah.
if you look at the timeline, like the Evolution of Man kind of timeline, it's very subtle differences throughout the time, with the exceptions of like 2020 and then when Rhodes took over the armor and things like that. But yeah, it's due for redesign. I still don't know if I can get into an Iron Man book. I've never read or seen Halt and Catch Fire. I don't know if you have.
No,
I have no basis of what this Christopher Cantwell is all about.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out. I'm excited for this. DC has announced its 80-page summer comic titled DC Cybernetic Summer. As the title says, it's going to feature cyborg or robot characters from the DC universe and feature creators like Stephanie Phillips, represent! Awesome. I'm so glad they threw out another book because she did that Wildcat.
Yeah, the Crime and Passion.
Yeah, Crime and Passion. Oh, that was. I'm so glad to see her on this book. Steve, and she's up there with Steve Orlando, Stuart Moore, Max Bemis. This is interesting because, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Max Bemis was a Marvel writer for a while.
Yes, he was a part of Marvel Max for a long time.
Right, and if anybody knows Max Bemis, he's the lead singer of Say Anything. So it's interesting to see him making well, I guess he can't really go on tour, but making comics again, and now he's on the side of DC, which is interesting. But yeah, Stephanie Phillips, represent. Awesome. Glad to see. Yeah, and there's so many cool robot characters. I mean, there's Cyborg, and
so
Cyborg.
Stephanie's going to be taking on Red Tornado, which is
really
cool.
Yeah, Red Tornado is really cool.
Yeah, so we got a Cyborg and Superman fight Cyborg Superman, which is fantastic.
Nice. Yep.
There's a Legion of Superheroes story in there. The one I'm looking forward to in here, even though I don't know any of these creators, but I just love this combination, is Batman OMAC and Brother Eye.
Oh, Brother, yeah.
We got Robot Man. That's the Max Bemis story.
Okay, so Max Bemis is doing the Doom Patrol. Yeah, Robot Man from Doom Patrol, right?
That makes sense with yeah. Harley Quinn and Cyborg Man. That sounds stupid.
Of course, they had to have a Harley Quinn story. Why?
You'll like this, even though I don't recognize this creative team either. But Booster Gold and Blue Beetle with Skeets.
Oh man! Why can't we just get that as an ongoing, please? It's because Jeff Johns is like, I want to write that, but when are you going to write it? I don't know.
It'll take me 4 years, and I'll give you 3 issues. Joshua Williams is doing a story, and it's going to be Mercury Flash.
Williamson? Oh,
yes.
That's cool.
Mercury
as in the Metal Man? Mercury, probably, right? I'm guessing.
It's Mercury Flash in the Speedster games.
Oh.
Steve Orlando is doing Midnighter, Apollo, other people I can't pronounce. And then you're getting Platinum and Wonder Woman, which I'm assuming Platinum is...
Yeah, one of the Metal Men.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it sounds like a cool combination, and I will buy it just to support our girl Stephanie.
Yep. Represent. Cool. And that's awesome she's doing Red Tornado. You always forget about Red Tornado. It doesn't really pop up that often.
He hasn't been around. I don't think he was around during 52, was he?
No. The last thing I remember of like Red Tornado was when he popped up in like Batman Brave and the Bold cartoon.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like...
I can't think of a comic appearance in forever.
Yeah. Besides like some old school Justice League, they really don't touch on that character at all. But like, I mean, they gave her Wildcat and she did an awesome job with that, so...
Yeah.
We'll see. Stefan Sejic has announced that he's leaving DC Comics to pursue independent work. He has many webcomics in the work that he plans to print at Top Cow, and stated that if he only has 10 good years left to drawing, then he wants to spend them having fun. I'm sorry, I read it earlier, but I couldn't stop from laughing because it's like, I wasn't having fun at DC. I don't want to draw Batman anymore.
Listen, I love Sejic, but if I remember correctly, he's a European boy.
Yeah.
And from my understanding, a lot of Europeans don't grow up reading Marvel and DC. They grow up reading other stuff.
Yeah, I get it. If it's not what he enjoys, but like saying having fun, it's like it's a job, dude. You know, had to, right.
And I think that's his point. I think I like that quote just because it was funny.
Yeah.
But I think his point initially is that I don't think he grew up loving DC Comics and wanted to do DC Comics. It was a paycheck.
Right. Yeah.
And now he's made some money and he can go do stuff. Made a name for himself and he can go do stuff on the side.
Yeah, you can't say things like that when you first start drawing in the industry. They're like, all right, see you later.
All I gotta say is, Jack, go back to Revine because that was a fantastic series of graphic novels that you did that I absolutely loved, and you never finished that story.
Yep. Boom Studios unveiled Al Ewing's first creator-owned project. Good for Al. We Only Find Them When They're Dead is a story about interstellar autopsy ship that harvests dead gods and seeks to find a one-of-the-kind prize in the stars. Yeah. So the series is drawn by Simone DeMeo. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Going around harvesting gods, like what? This is so like. Hey, by the way, Al Ewing's first creator-owned project, by the way, is harvesting gods in space. Like, take my money. What the hell? Way to start at a low note.
This was 100% a pitch at Marvel. Because if you look at the art that he posted for it, there's a god that looks an awful lot like Galactus.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Like, yeah. Yep.
So, but still, it's really cool. The art is fantastic, and I'm down to get... I mean, Al Ewing, if you're not reading Immortal Hulk, that book is fantastic. I'm not even a huge Hulk fan, And Al Ewing has earned like he needs my privilege, but he's earned the privilege in my book to at least check out whatever he's doing.
And sad news is legendary writer Denny O'Neil, very legendary, yeah. Kris is holding it up right now. Green Lantern, Green Arrow. He's known for that for sure. Passed away at age 81. I guess the good news here is that his family said he passed away at his home from natural causes, so hopefully he's surrounded by his family. O'Neill's known for his work at DC. I mean, come on, Batman, Green Lantern, Green Arrow. I mean, you see all those covers with those two guys on it. That's pretty much all Denny O'Neil stuff. He worked with Neil Adams, so I mean, he was there. He was there for it all. He did some stints with Marvel and Charleston Comics as well, but I mean, yeah.
You think Denny O'Neil, you think DC Comics.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, those iconic covers like Kris held up. I mean, it's Green Arrow on one side, Green Lantern on the other. He did those team up books really well.
Yeah, Denny and Neil together were magic. Like,
yeah,
those are the glory days of Neil Adams' career.
Mm-hmm.
Those are some of the best Batman. The Green Lantern, Green Arrow stuff was, I mean, at the time that was super controversial and has stood the test of time. I mean, that book's fantastic.
Yep.
It sucks that I have it. I have Neil Adams' signature in it. I was hoping to get Denny's one time, but of course I will not now. But it sucks. I mean, Denny lived a long life. It looks like he had a great family. He had a great career.
Mm-hmm.
He always seemed happy whenever you saw him on an interview or in a show.
Yep.
If you don't know his story, it's an amazing story to go back and read, because what he did for this industry is legend status, and he deserves that title. So, yeah, it's super sad. I was very upset when I read this the other day.
Yeah, it really sucks. And you know, just one more thing on that. You really don't see, and I don't think you have seen it for a while, the whole Green Lantern, Green Arrow team up book, you know? And I think there's something to be said about that, of like, that was just a point in time where this book is, I mean, still holds up. I mean, you know those issues when you see the covers, and they really, I mean, there really hasn't been a huge, I mean, Grant Morrison did a little bit of it with his run, but like, nothing like those guys are doing, you know? Like, it's almost like, you know, they don't want to touch that area of comics right now. And
yeah, and Denny and Neil did something that very few creators get to do, and they basically created something, a one-page piece of art and story that will define those two characters for all of time. Whenever you think of Green Arrow and Green Lantern, you'll think of My Ward is a Junkie. It's everybody. Oh, yeah. That was such a huge storyline for DC.
Yeah. Referenced all the time, and if nobody knows that, that's, you know, Green Arrow's ward was shooting up heroin. And,
and it was ballsy of DC to stand behind it back then too,
right?
Because that cover is literally Speedy with a needle in his arm.
Yeah, shooting up
the door. So
could you imagine releasing that cover now? Like,
no,
it wouldn't
I'm actually surprised that you can still find DC merchandise with that cover on it.
Right.
Honestly.
Oh, yeah.
And that's sad, because I think that's a book that they should put in the forefront of today's society too, because that book is more relevant today than it ever was.
Yep.
Based on the problems in our society with heroin.
And I think it came at a time that like nobody was even talking about it too. It was like so crazy for that iconic cover to happen. So rest in peace.
So everybody go out and read the Denny O'Neil story this week in honor of the man.
Do it for Denny. What did we read this week? I read a few comics. I want to talk about Adventure Man #1. Did you read that?
No.
Image book. I went blank on the writer. Matt Fraction. Do you not like Matt Fraction?
I think Matt Fraction is a very talented writer who can't stick with a story long enough to end it.
Yeah, it was more than 30 pages. The art was incredible. I can't think of the artist right now, but basically, it's almost like a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, if everybody remembers that. It's like the book
movie?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. with Sean Connery.
All the Alan Moore fans hate me right now.
Yeah, I know. Oh, the movie? Yeah. Oh God. But anyways, the premise is almost like that, but that's a story being read to a woman is reading to her son. And there's some backstory behind what she does. She runs like this old bookstore. Well, this character comes in that looks like one of the old Adventure Man teammates and hands her off a book that has the sigil of Adventure Man. And there's this like weird thing where she's got these goons with her. There's a run-in with the goons. The bookstore owner doesn't know what to make of it. And by the end of it all, it seems that the world of Adventure Man is real, and it's somehow it's connected to the home that they're living in, that the mother and the kid are living in, and we don't really know how. But there's some really cool characters. There's evil characters, and there's like an evil squad versus the good squad. So it's really cool. You get really cool characters that have certain powers and like gimmicks, like what they do. And I thought it was a good, solid first issue. I'll probably stick with it for a few issues, see where it goes.
Yeah, so sorry, I'm going back and looking at Fractions of Work, trying to figure out what the books were.
Yep.
So the one that always comes to mind for me, there's one he did early in his career that everybody talks about, but he never finished it. But the one, if you've never read it, Sex Criminals, is an amazing book, and it's still not over, and it seems like he's given up on it. Like, whenever he does release an issue, it kind of meanders. And that's my criticism of him. Every time I read a book by him, whether it was when he was doing his time at Marvel or his independent stuff, that happened. He has a great premise that he wants to do this grand thing for, and just seems to lose steam partway through.
Mm-hmm.
That's my Fraction criticism.
Rick and Morty Go to Hell #1. I don't really keep up with the ongoing series of Rick and Morty, but this one seemed like fun, and it was kind of like most of the issue of like Rick and Morty are obviously in hell, but like Morty thinks they're actually in hell, while Rick is like, this is just a alternate dimension, alternate universe thing. They keep seeing more things that are like, recognized of hell, and it's just a good issue. If you like Rick and Morty, definitely check it out. Justice League number 46.
I also read this.
Yeah, solid issue. We find, we pick up where we left off with the Justice League fighting the Amazons. The big green smoke monster specter thing that incites violence and corruption, or like it brings out the disdain between others. The conflict within others. It starts like infecting all the Amazons, and they're like, oh shit, well we better get going. So the Amazons start fighting them, then they start fighting each other, and then the Green Lantern, the fight with the Green Lantern is like, all right, I'm just going to make the Green Lantern Corps in my ring, and it makes you wonder, like, why do you even need a Green Lantern Corps if you could do that? But I thought it was a pretty cool scene. Venditti does some cool stuff, and that was pretty awesome. It's like seeing the Green Lantern Corps as coming out of the ring was pretty cool. Yeah. So they get into the cave where the monsters are being held, and they find Jim Corrigan. He's like beaten and battered and old. He's like 20 years older than he should be, because we find out that time goes further along. It speeds up wherever they are. It like speeds the aging process in this tomb that these monsters are being kept.
Yeah, basically, it's been a few weeks for them. It's been 20 years for him.
Yeah, and but dude, down at 20 years. Sorry. I just thought of that Zoolander. Damn it, Derek! You've been down there for 2 days. I've been down there for 30 years. I just thought of the Zoolander line. Sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm a black lung, Pops.
You're about the black one. Oh, damn it, Derek! Batman, I've been down here for 30 years. Anyways, that's the kind of that's basically the conversation he has with Batman. But we find out the King of Hell is down there, and now the King of Hell is out because they. They opened the door, but someone never closed the door behind them. He's like, aha, I'm out, finally. It's like, you didn't think to close the door behind you guys? But the King of Hell is huge. He's a big dude. And
looking forward to that fight.
Yeah, I'm thinking, what I'm getting is some like Justice League versus Starro vibes, and I'm hoping that's what we get next issue. Venditti gets me pumped to read a Justice League book. it's got adventure, it's got character references to characters that normally aren't in main DC storylines, and also like big giant monster. Like Batman can't fight a giant monster on his own, but who could? The Justice League, and that's what you want to see. You want to see a Justice League level threat, and you want to see them teaming up to fight it.
It makes me want a Justice League story where like the Titans just are unleashed on Earth, like that.
Yeah.
And I, honestly, now that I said that out loud, it just makes me think that's what I got out of Avengers when they relaunched Avengers recently.
Yeah.
Because the Celestials came down to Earth and they fought the Celestials.
Oh, there you go. That's pretty much it.
But yeah, that'd be cool. You could tie it into something with Wonder Woman, but it was a good issue. It's sad that Venditti is not going to be on the book very long because I've liked these issues more in their simplicity than all of Scott Snyder's run, and that's not a slight on Snyder. It was kind of nice to come down, just have like a 4-issue stories that were simple and fun.
Yeah. Batman 92 came out. I have not read it yet, just because I couldn't really get through this one quickly, just because it's been a while since I've read Batman. And plus, Tinian's writing it, so it's not the easiest read. Nothing against Tinian, but I mean, to get to this point, we've been talking about a lot of characters and a lot of things. But I'll have that read by next week for sure.
You didn't read the Harley Quinn done right issue?
No.
Punchline.
Yeah. Nope.
You haven't heard that one? Punchline is Harley Quinn done right?
Yeah. No. No, I haven't. That's great.
That's my favorite. Everybody's talking about Punchline.
Yeah.
They introduce a new Joker girlfriend thing.
Right.
So people online, shit posters online are like, yeah, it's just Harley Quinn done right.
Done right.
It's like, that's a fantastic way to put it. I
like it. Yeah. and then the Harley Quinn fans are just mauling. Yeah, so, and then Legion Superheroes number 6. What a great friggin' issue that was.
Yep.
Talk about, Bendis wrapping up a story in 6 issues. Let's talk about that. What the hell? Really? Like, commend this guy. This guy got through a pandemic, right? He got through all these other things he's trying to connect. He's becoming like, he's setting up all these other events and all these other storylines, but he wraps up a Legion of Superheroes storyline that's pretty epic in 6 issues, and then we can get more stories from there. They basically, and he introduces new characters all in one issue, and it's like, damn, dude, this is pretty good. He earned my respect. He's a great writer. Not like he's not a bad, he's a bad writer, but Gold Lantern, awesome.
I want to know more about these.
I know, and they tease you, and they're like, oh, you'll hear about his origin. It's kind of wild. I'm like, no, just tell me now. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, Gold Lantern shows up. Monster Boy is pretty cool.
I like Monster Boy. I like him a lot.
Monster Boy's trying to the planet is under attack, and he's trying to get everybody out safely, and they're like terrified of it. It's like, oh man, poor Monster Boy. But basically, the Federation of Planets, the Trident, the Aquaman Trident, is what's being fought after, and there's this group of like leaders that are part of like almost like a I don't know, like a table or like a round table that works with the Federation of Planets. Their job was to grab the Trident and I don't know, keep it safe, do whatever with it. The Legion thinks that they should have it. So basically, there's a big fight. Superboy grabs the Trident and uses it, and what it does is we know that there's a new Earth, but it's kind of separated, and it's like a makeshift Earth. Well, he brings back all the Earth's oceans. So we know the Earth is mostly water. So yeah, it was pretty cool. You almost see like the Earth reforming back to what it was. So that's interesting to see what comes of that. But also, there's some falling out with the Federation of Planets of like, okay, this guy that was seated at the table doesn't agree with the pres. I don't know what they refer to the leader. I think she's like Madam President or something. But she's like, whoa, the Legion did it all. They got the Trident back. They made Earth okay, and it's like, wow, maybe they're not so bad. They can do this, So there's going to be some conflict there of like people breaking off of the Federation of Planets because they didn't really agree with how the Legion of Superheroes make some tactics. You also see some, because like, you know, me going into the series, you always think Brainiac 5 like knows the future and knows how things play out, and he kind of like, so when he's instructing in those fights, like telling Superboy not to do something or telling Superboy to do something, you think like, oh, he already has this preconceived notion of what's going to happen, but he obviously doesn't, because Superboy, you know, jumps in and saves the day. So it either makes me wonder if he knows something that's going to happen, like the repercussions of remaking the Earth, or that because they brought Superboy into the timeline, he can't really calculate that that new input into the thick of it. I don't know if I'm reading too much into it, but it was a great issue. I think it really wrapped things up.
See, I haven't read a ton of Legion, so put that up front. I'm not a huge Legion of Superheroes fan.
Yep.
But my impression of Brainiac always was that he was kind of the general behind the scenes, moving the troops.
Yep.
And there's times in this where he A, loses control, and then B, guys just kind of go against his orders, and you can see kind of the frustration. But yeah, that was a great story. Who's doing the art on this? It's
fantastic. Check.
Sook. Ryan Sook.
Ryan Sook. Yep.
He's killing it in this book because not only is a lot going on, but Bendis has a style of writing that is a lot of dialogue. And he finds these amazing ways to keep the action flowing throughout the book. And then whoever's lettering the book just moves the dialogue through the art so perfectly. Like the creative team here really deserves a round of applause for just making everything work together, because there's so much going on, and I thought they nailed it.
Having a battle with like 100 characters, you know, is like not the easiest thing to handle.
So I really like this book. It's the first time I've really liked the Legion book, and I can't wait to move on from it, or to move forward with it. Yeah.
I think there's something to be said about bringing a couple new characters in the last issue too, and get you excited about them, like Gold Lantern. Like, you know what I mean?
I think that's one thing that Bendis has done really well through this, is that first issue we saw everybody.
Yeah.
And you got overwhelmed, like you do with any Legion book. Mm-hmm. And then he shrunk that immediately. So he's like, this is the Legion. Let's talk about these two.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about these three. Mm-hmm. And it's all going to be surrounded around how they interact with Superman or Superboy, and the one issue where they tell kind of the backstory. Mm-hmm. And you get to know these characters through interactions with a character you already know. And you get it piece by piece, as opposed to, fuck it, we got 100 characters. Just keep going. People figure it out as they go. And I think that's part of the reason I like it more, is that Bendis kind of babies me into it, being like, okay, like here's Saturn Girl.
Yeah.
And Gold Lantern, you'll find out about him later, but he's super cool. Look at this.
But he's super cool, and he's got 2 rings, you know, because he's got his flight ring and his gold ring. It's like, damn, that's awesome.
So I can't praise this book enough. I really like it. It's just fantastic.
Yeah. It almost makes you wonder, why does a Lantern need a Legion flight ring? But I don't know.
Why does Superboy need a flight ring?
Yeah, I guess it's just for show.
It's just for that bling bling.
That bling bling. Anyways, what did you read this week, Kris?
Those two, obviously. It was a busy week, so I didn't read a ton, but I got Daredevil number 20, which is kind of the wrap up to everything that's been going on with this Inferno story, and we kind of get Daredevil back proper. This book was a little tough because it's about Owlsley trying to take over the kitchen in the absence of Wilson Fisk. Now that he's mayor, he's no longer a crime lord, and Owlsley wants to take over that territory. So he kind of starts riots inside the kitchen, and all the cops move away from the riots and just let him go. Does any of this sound familiar to anybody? And then supervillains come in and start destroying the area. So it was a little too close to home, but other than that, it was really great because we got all the classic Daredevil villains. Stiltman was in it, Bullseye was in it, nice. Owlsley was in it. The list goes on. And then it ends in a way that I really liked, because not only does Wilson come in and kind of show a turn in his character of like, no, this ain't happening in my city. So you kind of get the idea that Wilson almost is turning good in a sense, in his own way. That he really is taking the mayor moniker to heart. Be like, this is my city, and you're not going to fuck it up. And then on top of that, there's a great moment where Owsley's minions are all like, listen, we wanted to take over the kitchen and like make the money here. We didn't want to destroy this place. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
So a lot of the tones in this are close to home, but it was a great book. And I like the way it ended too. This whole story arc for the last 20 issues has been prefaced on a moment where Daredevil loses control and ends up accidentally killing a kid.
Oh.
A kid committing a crime, but a kid nonetheless. And him trying to live with that. Did he, is he responsible? Should he take responsibility? And it kind of ends here with him going to Fisk and the head of the police saying, no, I'm going to take responsibility for my actions, admitting to what happened and being arrested. So I'm really interested to see what Chip has in store for Daredevil moving forward. But I thought it was a fantastic issue that I wish came out 2 months ago, so I wasn't sitting in the middle of this story in real life. But
yeah, right.
But still a great issue. And then Undiscovered Country number 6, which is kind of the wrap up of the first story arc for Undiscovered Country. We kind of get where there's a lot of like, this guy betrayed us and this is why, and this is what he was doing. He wasn't really betraying us, but it's very confusing. But the basic is we get to the door that leads into America. They get in there, send the train, they're left with a decision. And the decision is go home and forget what happened, or move on and try to fix what is happening in America. And through all this, there's a major death that I don't want to spoil too much of. And we do get the lead villain of this book finds his way through as well. So he's definitely going to pop up later on.
Uh-oh.
But there's a lot of great subcontext throughout this book. I really liked this first story arc. I thought it was great. It had like kind of Mad Max with almost weird mutant abilities in it. It had a lot of historical historical fiction added into it. So historical moments, but skewed to help the story. And I just think it's a really great book. So definitely check Undiscovered Country out. Awesome. And that was it.
Cool.
So, Mike, where can people find you on those internets?
They can find me at Fortress Ricker on Twitter. Where can they find you and/or the show?
Well, they can find me at Fortress Kris on Twitter, or they can find me at chrisrunt.com. That's CHRISRUNDT.com, where you can see everything I do right there, and you can sign up for my newsletter as well. Or if you want to just follow the show, it's fortresscomicnews.com. Remember, if you are listening to us, 5-star reviews on your podcatchers. If you're watching us, like, subscribe, share, comment down below, and all that happy stuff. If you want to get more perks for the show, patreon.com/fortresscomicnews. Go there. There's fun stuff to do and perks and help us out. And as always, we appreciate you and hope to see you next week.
Bye, everybody.